Hi, this is Chris Rusak with Modern Knowledge. I'm here with Nassim Haramein from the Resonance Project Foundation, and we are coming to you live from beautiful Banff, Alberta.
Right here in nature.
Yes.
Raw and real.
Raw and real. We've been camping for 3 days. We're right by a beautiful lake.
We're a little rough. And we might strip down and jump in halfway through this interview.
And we did that yesterday, actually. Not down to our skivvies, but our bathing suits in about 64-degree cold water. And it was quite the experience.
Definitely chill you out and activate your brain.
That's definitely what it did.
Yeah.
So Nassim's been kind enough to join us for 5 of our tour stops this year on the Modern Knowledge Tour. We did Montreal and Toronto last weekend, and now we're in Alberta. We're going to be in Calgary, Alberta on August 22nd, and then the following weekend in Vancouver on the 29th, and Victoria, British Columbia on August 30th. So hopefully if you catch this video, you're able to make it out to one of those last 3 remaining events. So Nassim, tell me a little bit about yourself, the work that you do, and a little bit about your background for the people watching.
I'm an independent researcher that have been doing extensive research in advanced physics and philosophy and ancient civilization, archaeology, and so on, in order to find a unified view of the physics of our world. How is all this came together in this incredible, beautiful way, like the settings we're in right now, and how does it actually eventually generate consciousness and all this stuff. But at the very fundamental physical level, that is like using physical theory, not just philosophy and mathematics, so that actually we understand the mechanics and we're not just saying things like it's all one in a dogmatic way, but we can actually prove and demonstrate that actually it is the way it is, and these are the mechanics under which that happens.
Is this a new concept, or is this a concept that you're bringing forward from the past through old revelations that have come from previous civilizations?
All spiritual traditions around the world pretty well talk about this concept of oneness, and they might call it God or many different things, mana and all sorts of things, but they all talked about the fact that it's all unified and that there's like information that's moving through this field of unification. And what's really exciting now is that science is starting to realize that that's really the case. It's not just a philosophy, it's not just a dogma, but actually that's the way things work. And I think that when these masters talked about it, the universe being one and all this, they meant it that way. They meant it for real, that like even matter is not separate from each other. Like each point in space is not completely isolated from the rest of the points in space, but everything is actually talking. We're starting to discover, for instance, that entangled particles are connected through wormholes in the structure of space, and that black holes are connected through wormholes, and like it's starting to come out of the physics.
Is that what they consider the quantum foam? Is that the wormholes that you speak of? Is that kind of what physics are talking about as quantum foam?
Yeah, exactly. That at the very, very fine level, at the very, very small level, these fluctuations of energy in the structure of space-time are making space-time curve to the point that they're little wormholes.
Okay.
Like very, very fine, like way below the atom. So you don't know they're there, but they are connecting particles together and making, the universe unified.
And that's I find it fascinating when we spoke before in an interview about this feedback system. You put out intent, and then the universe will give you back what you need or what you want, right? I just wanted you to expand on that a little bit about this feedback looping system that you're theorizing.
Yeah. So basically, I've shown in my equation that the mass of the nuclei of atoms is the result of these fluctuations in space that you can think of as information. And you can think of information going out of a point and coming back into a point, and so that there's constant feedback relationship with the environment, so that systems eventually self-organize in a very complex way because there's constant feedback. That wouldn't happen under random function. And so, and in fact, the probabilities of our universe coming together, or even our bio sphere coming together under random function, doesn't add up, you know, in 13.7 billion years since the so-called Big Bang. So, like, you know, the probabilities are so low, like extremely, extremely low. There's no way it could have happened unless there's feedback, unless it's learning about itself. And so, you know, the wheel of karma that you find in some of the traditions, the concept that you're creating your reality, that whatever you put out, you get, you know, and all this stuff, are, you know, I believe, concepts that people have like understood from experiencing the universe, that are actually now starting to come out in the physics, meaning that, like, yeah, it really is talking to itself, and that's how it's learning, and you're part of that mechanism. So whatever you put out will come back to you, but it will come back modified, meaning people think, I create my reality. That's common. You hear that from spiritual people all the time. But it's not just, that's only part of the feedback, right? There's a feed forward, I create my reality, and there's a feedback, reality creates me, meaning like all the rest of the people, you know, are involved in creating your reality. Right? We're not individually creating our reality, otherwise we would never meet. We'd all be in our own reality. But we have a consensus reality.
So then therefore, if there's this feedback looping mechanism and the universe is growing and learning about itself through us, I got two questions here. Is the universe then, in your mind, its own conscious sentient being? Is it alive through us, or is it alive adjacent to us?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and you know, that's, of course, if the feedback is the source of consciousness, meaning that the reason why we're self-aware is because there's feedback in the structure of space. You can't really say at one point there is no feedback and at the other point there is, right? You can't, like, and that's a big problem in consciousness study. You can't say, oh, inanimate matter is not conscious,
not participating,
and then all of a sudden you got consciousness, because us being conscious is a bunch of minerals and water put together in a sack that's moving around that we call our body, and that's conscious. So consciousness must be part of the whole thing, or it's not there at all. And so I think that, you know, the whole universe is conscious, and it's expressing itself eventually with higher and higher level of complexity to eventually something that looks like us, or it might look different on another planet, but something that's able to move around, that's able to look back at the universe and learn about itself.
So we have a special place, quote unquote special place, by having the senses that we have to look back on itself. And some would argue, you know, like I'm looking at the beautiful lake here with the rocks, the trees around us. Like I know that rock, if I run up to it and smack my toe on it, it's going to affect me, right? So it is participating in my reality, even though from my perspective,
it's not.
I see it as an inanimate object.
That's right.
But that's just an egotistical frame of reference that I'm using.
That's right.
We're going to jump in the cold water, right?
You're thinking that you're separate from the water, from the rock, and all this stuff. But without the water, without the rock, you're not here.
I'm not going to feel any sensation.
Yeah, you're not going to have a body. If that all that stuff wasn't there, supporting the evolution to eventually have a human being, that doesn't happen, right? So it's all connected. It's all talking. It's all like a support mechanism of learning, you know, of a universe that's learning about itself.
Now, is there anything in your current research or your past knowledge where talking about predicting the future? So could someone be sitting here today and gain information from the universe to predict something that may happen in the future? Is there any sort of mechanism in that feedback system?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, that means as well that the universe has memory because if it's an evolution, right? There's memory, and what is memory in the universe? What is memory in physics? Memory in physics is time, meaning that we wouldn't have time if we didn't have memory. If you didn't remember the minute before, you wouldn't know that there is a continuous, evolution of event, right? So you wouldn't have a concept of time. So we could remove the word time and replace it with memory, and so that means that
I like that.
So it's space memory instead of space time, and that means that space is actually like a medium, like the vacuum fluctuation we were discussing, is like a medium that has information in it, right? And what you call your past, which is your memory, right, is actually information you left on the structure of space-time as you move through it on the planet and, in the solar system and all this stuff. So that means that, like, the information that's present at any moment in space, right, is what will predict what's coming next, right? It's gonna make these events probable in one direction. So if you access that information, you could, predict the probabilities of what is going to come next.
To a higher degree of certainty.
That's right.
But you'll never actually be able to 100% nail it because it's still in that feedback system going.
Because it's constantly changing.
Okay. Right. So with this space memory, and I love that term, is that what the ancients would call the Akashic records? Or
absolutely.
That's this hidden gem that we're all looking for.
That's right.
So how would one then tune themselves in order to at least interact with that fabric, that space memory more? What could one human flesh and bones person do to achieve that?
Well, you can think of your body, instead of like being the seat of consciousness, you can think of your body as being an antenna that's tapping into this Akashic record. And what you call your consciousness is the information you're sending into the Akashic record, and the information the Akashic record is sending back to you, or the vacuum, in more modern terms. So
the vacuum is the Akashic record.
Right.
That's it. That's all the information.
Yeah, it's the fluctuation of the information in the structure of space. So if you look at my equations, you find that like every proton has all the information of all the other protons in the universe in terms of vacuum information inside it. And and it might sound really outrageous, but the equation outputs a very precise mass and radius for the proton. That's the most precise measurement on the planet today. So, it's not just an esoteric thought. It actually does the job in actually describing matter very, very precisely. So, so if you understand that, then you understand that going inward in your senses towards the center of your existence, literally towards the center of every atom that makes you. You're made out of 100 trillion cells. Each cell's has 100 trillion atoms in it. And you went, so like any practice in which you're going to the center of your existence will bring you to the access to the Akashic record.
So you're seeking it. The old sages would say this: you seek the information from inside,
from
within, not from without.
That's right. But because without, it's limited. You have limited amount of access to information.
Because you're limited to just your senses.
That's right.
Whereas if you go internally,
you have access
to everything.
That's right.
Okay, that's fine.
And that's why people can do remote viewing, remote healing, and all this stuff. How can you remote view something that's on the other side of the planet, which has been demonstrated in laboratories over and over since the 70s, with undoubting, results, that people can do that. They're not doing that by trying to sense outside themselves what's going on the other side of the planet. They're going inside, internally, and there they find the information that they're seeking.
Therefore, then that makes me think of this thought of every single proton in my body, every single molecular atom inside my body
Yeah.
holds the seed of everybody else's consciousness inside of me. Because if all the information is packed inside each and every one of the atoms in my body, basically I am everything, and everything is me.
Yeah, that's right.
And as long as I can fine-tune my body
Yeah.
and get rid of the blinders that I have on,
Right. And
constantly
the idea,
actively seeking outwards.
right. And
right?
and the idea of separation, because you think you're there and I'm here and the rock's there and the lake's there and the mountains are there and
Yeah.
it's all separate. But when you actually see that the vacuum between me and you and everything is connected and
Yeah.
it's connecting everything, it's all within you and without
Yeah.
then you can start to actually become an active what I call vacuum engineer, meaning you can actually start to manipulate the field so that you can or harmonize with the field so that you can flow with nature, you
Yeah.
can flow with the universe in such a way that you become more and more powerful in your capacity to manifest what you want
Yeah.
and to complete whatever mission is that
Nice.
you're on and that you're here to accomplish.
Yeah. So speaking of missions, what's the Resonance Project Foundation working on right now? You got the delegate program.
We got the delegate program, which is great. It's like a 12-week course, and you get all the information, all the physics, all the philosophy, all the mathematics, everything is in there. You can skim along on the easy path, or you can dig as deep as you want, and it's great. And all the references are there. You can go and like take tangents wherever you want, and then one time out of the month for 2 hours, I answer questions for people that are taking the course, and it's really a wonderful course. I'm really happy we have that available for people
And
now.
so what would this give people? It just give them a nice overall view of this concept of the connected universe. It'll
That's
give them
right.
tangents for them to jump off on.
Yeah.
Whatever their passion is, whatever they're
Exactly.
whatever they're called to explore
Yeah.
deeper into different aspects of the
Yeah,
connected
if
universe.
they want to start solving the equations, or if they're interested in ancient civilization or philosophy, whatever, there's all the references there, and
Sure.
and it's constantly being updated, so the new information gets put in and all this stuff. And so it's really a comprehensive course, and everybody that's taken it so far, I mean, it's remarkable. The feedback we're getting is that it's transformative. It's transforming people's life. Anybody that takes it come out with a completely different outlook on themselves, the universe, and their place in it than when they started. So it's very compelling. It's very powerful.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So from that would stem out, and I know your work would stem out a lot of solutions, a lot of new concepts, and a lot of practical applications
Right.
that might butt heads with the current establishment in today's world.
Oh, yeah, it
whether or not
definitely
be
does.
politics, with oil, with big industry, big pharma.
Mm-hmm.
So have you ever seen any resistance? Have you ever felt any resistance to these new concepts that you're bringing forward with the Resonance Project?
Oh my God, for sure. We're talking over the last 30 years of research that I've done, I've seen and I've experienced censorship at many different levels, especially in science and physics and so on. It's extremely difficult to get heard. It's extremely difficult. You get ridiculed in many different ways. It's actually pretty painful, and it's a hero's journey to go against some of the largest establishment, both on the spiritual side and religious side, and on the scientific academic side. And so I've experienced many events of censoring and difficulties.
Yeah, for the audience, Nassim writes actual physics papers and tries to present them to,
The
scientific community, which are, I guess, institutionalized organizations like the big schools, the big universities of the world that have had centuries of basically compartmentalization and censorship established within them to promote
their views.
And the views of the people in power.
Right.
They're
That's
putting
right.
them forward. So I find it all the time in the work that I do. it's one thing to do an event or to do a talk with someone that doesn't have the name doctor in front of their name. But as soon as you stick the name doctor in front of their name, everybody wants to listen to them. So it's almost like just because an institution writes you a certificate saying you passed our course, then you are gifted enough to go out and spread this knowledge. But meanwhile, the knowledge that they're trying to spread is being censored all along the way. So
and then on top of it, incredibly, is that if you look in history and you look at previous moments in history where there was great advancements in science, it typically didn't come from the institutions of the time. It typically came from independent researchers, people that thought completely outside the box, differently, and that upset the apple cards, and they were censored, they were persecuted, they were, and eventually people went, oh, but maybe he's right. And often it was too late. They had either killed the person or, the person
stuck him in jail forever or whatever.
Exactly. And so it's kind of sad that this in some ways continues into a modern age. Science should not be about dogma and believing that something is specifically that way. It should be open to any ideas, and then the ideas that are correct will eventually come out of the bunch, and the rest will weed out. And this is the way science is truly meant to be.
So then therefore the actual wording of the scientific method is something that you hold true to yourself. If it's applied properly, it actually works.
That's right. And it shouldn't be about what degrees someone has or not. Einstein wrote relativity long before he got a PhD, and so on. It just is critical in fact, in order for somebody to come up with something new and outside the box and more evolved than what it is, that person has to be able to step out of what's being taught in the universities every day and all the indoctrination that goes on in some ways, not necessarily voluntarily, but it's just that if you learn these things, you're gonna tend to think that way, and if you continue to think the same way everybody else is thinking, you're gonna arrive at the same point, and you're not gonna be able to move very far the field of investigation you're in. You might be able to move it a little bit, but you might be moving it in the wrong direction because you went with everybody else as well. So, in order for, a big quantum jump in our understanding to happen, for it to happen, it has to be somebody that is thinking outside the box.
I agree 100%. And this begs the question then. Everybody knows that there seems to be a pressing need for immediate change in the world today, and the work that you're doing with the Resonance Project Foundation, it's not only physics, it's also environmental, it's also health-based theories and practices and solutions.
Right.
What would happen if, and I urge everybody to check out his website and the foundation's website, what would happen if an institution goes, you know what, Nassim, you are right, come with us. You now got full funding and you got the run of the show. What would you do in that situation? What would happen if they tried to bring you into the fold? Would you see that as a means to control the output of your foundation, or is that something that you would welcome?
We are approached and we do collaborate with people that are very much in the mainstream and mainstream institution, financial and scientific and so on. People are not necessarily aware of it, but we do, and because we don't want to do what we don't want to segregate like we have been segregated.
Right.
We have to bring everybody together.
Yeah.
We have to all evolve. So it's not
us against them.
It's not an us against them
Yeah.
thing. We and absolutely more and more of the scientific community and the institutional community are interested.
Yeah.
And, in fact, the foundation right now is undergoing some changes that involve the private sector and all this stuff. Of course, it's challenging for some parts of the private sector to be faced with changes that may involve, infinite amount of energy available in every point in space, gravitational drives where we can leave the planet, all these things. They change our way of doing business. They change our society very fundamentally. And
people are going to be threatened. That is what's going to happen.
There
right?
is
yeah.
Already, but at the same time, we have to move forward.
Yeah.
We are challenged right now in our ecology, in the way we live on this planet, and our capacity to survive. And these are the solutions that can totally transform our society and save our world.
Yeah.
So that transition has to happen. And people know that. Yeah. Even in the industry, in the agencies, in the political realms, these people are people. They have children, they have family. Yeah. They want the earth to continue. They want our society to evolve. So it's actually happening.
Yeah.
It just takes a little time.
Yeah. So that this evolution of our consciousness and this feedback system you're talking about, where we're going to get what we need, it's not what we want. Mm-hmm. If we all open ourselves up and become our individuals, not be controlled, and allow this information to go forward and allow this collaboration to happen. I've talked to many scientists that work for institutions like NASA who they're literally, you sit them down in a chair and they're the most passionate people about whatever subject they're on. And then, but they still get thrown under that blanket of, well, you're working for a government organization, so you're all corrupt. And I personally, my opinion is we got to let that go. Right? We got to let that go. We got to be able to cooperate with each other. We got to be able to give a little bit of amnesty for the people that work for these government organizations, for them to come out. And I'm sure you talk to them too. They love your concepts.
Absolutely. So some of them are very excited about what I'm doing, and they might not publicly talk about it. And many of them don't, because if they do, then they're under big duress from their peers and their funding and institution. And so it's not necessarily the best thing for them to do, but they incorporate a lot of the stuff I do and others in their thought process and all this, and it's changing the world slowly from the inside. Right. And it's not because somebody works for a governmental agency or even for the military or whatever, that they're not people. They're people. They have families, they have children, and they're actually, and most of them are doing things because they think what they're doing is the best for the planet, and they want to help. It might be misguided in some cases when they're shooting each other, in some country, but it's changing and it's evolving, and we have to open our arms and open our hearts and not do what they're doing to us. Yes. Because otherwise, we defeat the purpose of the whole operation.
Wonderful. Please check out Nassim's website, the Residence Project Foundation. You can find all the links and all the information cited below in this video. And if you see this video,
Nassim in the raw.
In the raw, yes. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.
Let's jump in the lake.
Hear that loon?
Yeah, right at the end.
Okay, so let's go and connect with the universe. It's all fluid dynamics. Let's do it. Glacier water, here we go. Woo! Whoa! Whoa!